Hey, just wanted to record a quick note before we get to the episode. I'll be taking the next couple of months off to spend time with our brand new daughter coming in just a few days, probably from when this airs. She's due May 7th. Sophia, she's our first, so super excited for that. Gonna take some time to spend certainly with her and my wife, Shelly, at home, kind of getting acclimated to our new normal. So appreciate you being here. Appreciate you understanding the break. I will plan to be back in July with some more episodes. So thanks for being here, and we'll get to the episode. Where do you get your financial news or your news in general? Your answer to that question likely tells me a lot about how emotional of an investor you'll be, and frankly, just how good of an investor you probably will be in the long run. So I wanted to record this episode today and talk about financial news sources and problem, frankly, with most of them, and some suggestions for how to approach news and some sources that I would say, are generally trusted places to go for financial news. So, why does this matter? Well, there's a lot of noise out there. Obviously, right now in 2025, there's crazy amounts of overload. There's bad news everywhere you look, in every international, US, local. You can look anywhere and find something to be up in arms about. That's problematic for us as long-term investors because, those short-term headlines can lead us to make some decisions that might not be the best for us in the long run. So we need some clear, unbiased information to understand what's going on in the world around us and make good decisions for us in the long term. So right now, financial media is really just entertainment. You roll the calendar back maybe several decades, you'd find more news sources that were not only central and not so biased one way or the other, but that were actually reporting news and things that mattered and things that you needed to know instead of just headlines or gossip, if you will. As time's gone on, the media has gotten more biased, right? It doesn't sell ads to put out, to be honest, true central stuff. So especially on television, it's the reason why, it's very difficult to turn on a television news network these days in 2025 and have it be right down the middle, not, left or right, not liberal or conservative. It's always going to have a little bit of a twist to it because they sell ads, right? Ads pay the TV producers, pay the networks. That is how they make their money. So nobody's going to watch something that doesn't get them up in arms, get their emotions going. That's just the way the world works, unfortunately. Why is that problematic to us? Well, putting that on all the time, having that sensory information into your brain, it's going to hurt your performance if you're managing your investments, right? So Dalbar does a study. There's lots of them out there. They've done an investor behavior study, where they've said the behavior gap, right? Most investors are underperforming their investments by 3 to 7%. A large reason for that is because of news, right? The successful investors are going to ignore daily noise and focus on, long-term trends. Those that are, emotional with daily news and trying to, react to markets and react to what they saw on CNN or Fox News or wherever, those are the ones that are going to probably be the statistic that, hey, they underperformed their investments by several percentage points over many years. So news is a huge, huge, huge problem, especially digital media, right? I'm talking things that you watch, things that you're scrolling on your phone. All of that, to be honest, is bad, in my opinion. I would stay away from all of it. So what is the solution? You might ask, well, how am I supposed to stay informed? There's good sources to get reliable financial news, and you don't necessarily need it every day, and you don't need it every hour of every day. So I would recommend, go read news. Don't watch it. So I think there's a huge difference. Again, it goes back to ads. Most Americans and most people just want it easy. They want to flip on the TV and watch and just be in passive mode. But those that are going to, get deep into the issues and get deep into what's going on and read deeply, they're going to be, reading articles in things like The Economist, right? Or things like the Wall Street Journal. So these, newsflash, those are, for me, those are kind of those trusted sources. Those are two things that I read pretty regularly. The Economist comes in print to my door, every Friday, Saturday, once a week. I get to sit down and read it. The articles are long. It's like 80 some pages. I love that it's print. It's not so fast. Allows me to kind of just slow down and digest kind of what's happening around the world. The Wall Street Journal is another pretty good source. Outside of its opinion column, it's actually fairly central, as is the Financial Times, as is Bloomberg. Morningstar and Investopedia are pretty good educational resources. So again, these are all places we can go to get generally central views, which is what we want. Again, not to get into politics. Don't care what your politics are. Facts are facts. We just want things reported to us very plainly without someone's third party point of view or some opinion on it. We can go ahead and make our own insights based on what we read, but we really don't want our news to be tinged with some left or right views of the person or the agenda of the person that's writing it, right? We want to avoid, again, big headlines, things that we're watching, anything opinion section. Read that. If you're sitting there with a drink or want some entertainment, that's fine. But don't read that as like, oh, I'm trying to figure out what's going on in the economy. That's not good, right? Any finance shows that you're watching on TV aren't good. I think there's some podcasts that are probably good, right? You're listening to a podcast right now. Those could be good sources of information. Typically, they're probably going to have some opinion. I would say like if you're sticking to pure news, your two pillars that I would recommend, print version of The Economist, digital or print version of the Wall Street Journal. Those are two really solid ones that I would recommend for everyone. I don't know that there's a lot out there. You can Google, there's a couple places out there that will put all the news sources on like a spectrum from left to right, liberal to conservative. And, they'll rank them. And there's not very many in the middle. Wall Street Journal and Economist are two of them that I would generally trust. Financial Times, Bloomberg kind of being other ones that are more data driven. They're not going to have some spin on it. Okay, so now that we have where do we want to go for news? Let's just talk about your intake of news and how to maybe build a smarter news habit. One way is just limit that intake of news. Either maybe 15, 20 minutes a day or a certain time a day, or maybe it's weekly. I truly think some people would be best once a week reading The Economist or once a week popping open the Wall Street Journal. I don't know that we need to know what's going on a daily basis. As crazy as that may sound, I would only read news. I truly think you shouldn't be watching it. If we're only doing a certain amount per week and we're only reading it, that's just going to lead us to be generally more calm about life, but specifically like our investments and, how we're thinking about markets and finance and the world economy. We're just going to be we're going to be an informed person still, but we're going to be a calmer, more long-term focused person that isn't so caught up in those daily, ups and downs of what might go on and what might not go on. An example of this, when I'm recording this in the last few weeks, month or so, might be like the tariff threats, right? If you've been reading the TikTok feed or something read in the Wall Street Journal every single day, one morning might be tariffs are coming. The next afternoon was like, nope, tariffs are off. And then, nope, the tariffs might be back on. So, but if you're just checking in once a week, you would read The Economist on Saturday morning and it would say, oh, there were some threats of tariffs and they were called off. Okay. And that's really all you needed to know. You didn't need to be so caught up in that up and down, volatile, emotional news cycle. So just to summarize, why don't I record this episode and tell you to stop watching news? I think it's really important for your development as a human, but especially in personal finance as an investor and to develop your long-term focus. Having a terrible, bad news habit where you're scrolling for news or you're watching it is really a bad thing for your brain, I believe. It's especially bad for your investment portfolio and your decisions in the long run. I just want to improve your decision inflow and improve that news habit. So, my challenge to you would be, hey, pick a high quality news source that's central, whether that is a certain podcast or the Wall Street Journal, The Economist. You're going to take my advice there and just dial into that at least once a week. If you want to do it daily, great. Just keep it in a box, maybe 15 minutes a day. Make sure that, again, we're reading it if possible, and we're putting it in that box to where we're not going to get into doom scrolling for an hour and a half because, something's going on. We just want to read it, say it's 8 to 8:15 in the morning. It's in that box. We're doing that. We're moving on with our day. We're not letting that affect our entire life and our mood. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this is a good push. I think most people know most of the news out there is really bad. This is just another prod to affirm that for you. Pick better news sources, be an informed citizen, be an informed investor. But I think overall, the less news, the better off you will be, both in finance and life. So thanks again for being here. Really appreciate you listening, being with me all this time. I'll be gone the next couple months. We'll be having our little girl here really soon. We'll have plenty to share, probably in July when we are back with more episodes. So thanks so much and have a good one. We'll see you in a couple months. Thank you for joining us today. Do you want the exact financial planning framework that I use with clients? Go visit baskinfp.com where you can grab a free download of the ultimate military and veteran financial checklist to give you the bluff on what you need to be doing to manage your finances. We'll be back next week with some more content to help you on your journey to financial freedom. See you then. This is a friendly reminder that the Bluff Finance Podcast is general and educational in nature and does not constitute tax, investment, legal, or financial advice with respect to any particular individual or taxpayer. Please consult with your own tax, legal, financial, and other advisors regarding your own unique situation.